You might be put off James Bannerman's Church of Christ by the size of the volume. It's large. It was originally published in 2 volumes, but it's divided into sections that can be read on their own with great profit. The initial section is just the nature of the church, the source of its authority and power, the delegation of authority to it by Christ and through the apostles. And he talks about the church in relation to the other societies that God has established. So the church's relationship to the state, for instance, how that operates, what is the legitimate role of the state in relation to the church and the church in relation to the state. Talks about the church and the family and explains the proper understanding of authority between those different offices. It goes on to talk about the power of the church in the rule of law and the courts of the church. The work of the church, there's a chapter on discipline. And whatever your background, church discipline is a necessary function of the church. And it is one of those marks of a true and healthy church. The Reformers were insistent and clear on that. Bannerman explains what discipline is, how it operates, what its goals are, and how even when, from a human perspective, it may seem that discipline has failed, when discipline is exercised properly and biblically, it always succeeds. It always accomplishes the purposes for which God intended it. He also talks about church power in doctrine, how the church establishes doctrine through councils, beginning with the Jerusalem Council in Acts 15 and going on through the ecumenical councils. He addresses the ordinances of the church, feast days. He talks about the Sabbath, talks about the church and the sacraments and what the relationship of membership and polity. He talks about the church visible and invisible. And in all of those things, corrects modern distortions and misunderstandings about the church, and does so in a way that doesn't sort of force you into it, but brings you along and sweeps you up and leaves you going, wow, isn't God's plan for the church wonderful? And Bannerman does this in a very powerful way. It's a book on ecclesiology. You wouldn't think it would move you in the way that it does, but at points I found myself just closing my eyes and in prayer thanking the Lord for the establishment of His church. And as we love Christ, we need to love His bride. And Bannerman helps us love the bride of Christ.